What would you do if you walked into your boss's office and found your wife there? Not crying, not explaining, just quietly fixing her clothes while he looked at you and smiled. Jason Miller didn't lose everything slowly. He lost it in one moment he could never forget. And the worst part wasn't just what he saw, it was what happened right after. Because before he could even ask a question, his boss calmly told him to close the door. And something about that moment felt wrong, like everything had already been planned. Because minutes later, Jason was sitting in that same office being accused of misconduct, handed a termination letter, and escorted out like a criminal, while the man who had just destroyed his marriage sat there pretending to be the victim. And as Jason stood there, confused and humiliated, his boss leaned forward and said, "Think carefully before you speak. You don't have proof." And those words stayed in his head because deep down he knew this wasn't a mistake, it was a setup. And that truth started to show itself slowly because when Jason replayed everything, the late nights, the urgent meetings, the growing closeness between his wife Laura and his boss, and the way he had been left out of conversations that used to include him, it all started to make sense. But what hurt him the most wasn't the boss, it was Laura, because when he confronted her that night, he expected her to deny it, to cry, to beg, but she didn't. She just looked at him, tired and distant, and said something simple that broke him completely. "You were never there. He was." And in that moment, Jason felt something inside him collapse because he realized he hadn't just been betrayed, he had been replaced. And if you think that was the lowest point, it wasn't. Because a few days later, rumors started spreading at his workplace. People whispering, judging him, calling him unstable, unprofessional, destroying his reputation before he could even defend himself. And just like that,
Jason didn't just lose his job, he lost his name, his respect, and his place in the world. And for a while, he disappeared. Not because he was weak, but because he was trying to understand one thing. Why was it so easy for them to destroy him? And that question changed everything. Because instead of reacting, instead of trying to fight back immediately, Jason did something no one expected. He stayed quiet. And that silence wasn't weakness, it was the beginning of something powerful. Because while everyone believed he was finished, Jason was rebuilding himself quietly, working with people who still believed in him, learning, growing, and slowly taking back control of his life. And while he was rising, something else was happening behind the scenes, because the company he once worked for started falling apart. Deals failing, clients leaving, pressure building. And what no one realized was that many of those clients were now choosing Jason, trusting him instead. And by the time his former boss noticed what was happening, it was already too late, because the cracks had turned into damage, and the damage turned into exposure. Investigations started, financial records were reviewed, and the truth came out, revealing misuse of company funds, abuse of power, and everything the boss thought he could hide. And this time, there was no escape, because the same man who once sat in power was now standing in court, facing charges. And when the verdict came, it was final: prison. And just like that, the man who destroyed Jason's life lost everything. And if you think that was the end, it wasn't, because when the money disappeared and the power was gone, the relationship between Laura and the boss didn't survive. It turned into arguments, blame, regret, because what was built on betrayal couldn't last. And when everything finally collapsed, Laura had nowhere left to go, no one left to turn to. Except Jason. And one day, she showed up, standing in front of him again, not confident, not proud, just broken. And for the first time, she cried, not softly, but like someone who finally understood what she had lost. And she told him the truth, that she thought she was choosing something better, something easier, but instead she lost everything that truly mattered. And she asked him for forgiveness, not even asking to come back, just asking him to forgive her so she could have peace. And Jason didn't shout, didn't get angry. He just looked at her quietly and said something simple: "I forgive you." And for a moment, she felt relief, like the weight was finally gone. But then he continued, but I can't go back to who I was before." And those words didn't come with anger, they came with truth. And Laura understood, really understood, that forgiveness doesn't always mean a second chance. And life didn't suddenly get better for her after that, because regret has a way of staying. It follows you, it reminds you of what you lost, and over time, that pain became too heavy for her, affecting her health, her peace, her life, until one day she got sick. Not suddenly, but slowly, the kind of sickness that comes from carrying too much pain for too long. And when Jason heard about it, he didn't ignore it, he didn't turn away. He went to see her, not as a husband trying to fix the past, but as someone who once loved her deeply. And as she lay there, weak and quiet, she looked at him one last time and said something that stayed with him forever. "You were the only one who ever truly loved me, and I traded you for something that didn't last." And in that moment, Jason didn't feel anger. He felt something heavier, sadness, because some people don't realize what they have until it's gone. And by the time they understand it, it's too late. And when she passed, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, just like the way she left his life. And Jason walked away from it all, not broken, not angry, just changed. Because sometimes the deepest revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you, it's becoming someone who no longer needs them at all. So tell me, if someone destroyed your life and came back when they had nothing left, would you forgive them, or would you walk away forever? And if this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay for more stories that might be closer to your reality than you think.